what are some exam tips? And it doesn't have to be necessarily for just the CTA exam. What are some architect certification exam tips in general that you would offer as kind of best practices for preparing for any one of the, be it application architect, system architect, or technical architect?
For any architecture exams, it depends on like if you are in a project or are you working or not. So if you are working, most of the learning comes from when the project you're working on. So for example, most of the project touch upon one, if not one or two, if not all of these areas. So you try to learn out of there. Obviously, there is Trailhead, there's a lot of blogs, all areas you can do hands-on. So that is something you need to drive your own pace and do the learning. But you definitely learn while you work. So I think my mantra and how I gave my, I mean, I'm at the, like, I'm an application architect and system architect. So till now, this is how I prepared myself and work towards it to learn when I on the project as well as going to other resources. Sorry.
So I have an insight on this. I did a bunch of certifications before joining Salesforce, and 2 years back, I when I joined Salesforce for 1 year, I didn't get time because I was busy with the client work. And then there was a deadline for me to finish all the remaining certs, right? And I started doing it last year. And the certification exams for the designer certification exams, the identity and access management, integration designer, they all changed, meaning they revamped it, right? So they rewrote the exams and they became much more tougher. So I failed my integration designer exam the first time I attempted it because I prepared the way I always have prepared for these exams, and I failed. And then I went back to the drawing board and saw, like, I mean, I remembered the questions, the kind of questions they were asking. They were asked in the exam. And what I did was, I just went to help.salesforce.com, and I just read through the documentation, the entire documentation on integration I could find, and that helped me crack the exam. Because the integration exam, within the discussion group about this exam, there were so many discussions that bunch of people are failing this exam. And then while I went through the documentation, I also started making notes, which has helped many people pass the exam, this specific exam, right? So I would recommend, if you are confused on where to find documentation, help.salesforce.com is the best place to go. Many questions will come from there. The specific questions come from that documentation.
Great resource. Thank you, Swapnil. Over to you, Bibhu.
Yeah, as in, apart from, I think, the CTA exam, if you consider every other exam, as in we can put it into one bucket, and CTA obviously is because it has two stages, like you have to go into the domain architect and then go for a review board. So, and I agree to David's point of that limitless. I to be honest, I have read that book and I really, really love that book. And there is a reason why. And in nowadays, like, even if after my CTA, I give certifications and all this stuff, I just keep on piling all my certification. It's not just to pile on it. I love to read. And it is about, I don't have to spend a lot of time. To be very honest, I don't have to spend. And once you actually, that book gives a lot of tips for you. It's not about that book itself, but then that book actually gives you a lot of tips how to learn, like how you develop that attitude of learning. And you're just spending probably, let's say, an hour every day of your time, like an hour not watching Netflix and probably watching a video or studying something on Trailhead makes a huge difference. You would realize it over the period of time. And that's something obviously I've been doing for, I don't know for how long. Probably there is hardly any days when I don't do some Trailheads or not reading something about Salesforce. And again, that comes from your passion, like whether you are really passionate about what you're doing, what you're learning. The fun way of learning is there, but you really need to, any certification in Salesforce ecosystem, if you're going for, the first most important item is looking at the exam guide, which a lot of people actually don't look at. And that is very important. You have to understand the exam guide really well. That's probably I think the biggest tip that I can give you. Go into the exact exam guide, see in detail what are the things that they're asking about. And you will definitely find in the exam that is the exact points that they're actually trying to cover. So if you follow those, then definitely, you will, obviously everybody touched upon the content, and there are so many trail mixes now. Every exam has a trail mix. You go through that trail mix. I've never done those trail mixes because as in I think my certificates were before the trail mixes were in place. But these trail mixes are such handy. You have curated content. It has been offered to you on a plate. You just have to sit down and eat it. Like as simple as that. You just have to spend your time. Just give time, give your conscious effort. It is not a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, great perspective. Thank you, Bibhu. I'll offer one more resource that I've used and I like quite a bit. If you've never heard of mind maps is a way to diagram kind of your thoughts and you connect bubbles to other bubbles and relate them to each other. I'll put a link in here. It's for Simple Mind. It's a free app on iPhone. I think it's probably available on Android too. And then if you upgrade to Pro, it's like $10. You get more options. Whatever you use, there's tons of different mind maps out there. I use it like when I read books. So I'll diagram the things that I'm learning in a book, because if you write it down, it's going to stick more. When I'm doing trailheads, if I want to remember something, studying for an exam, I'll put a mind map up and kind of hit all the key concepts, and then I'll help branches out to all the different things on those concepts. You can use it for anything, checklists, for packing, for a trip, whatever. It's a great tool. So I'll throw that out there.